So we have to tell you about the time we lost our son on the metro. That's the train system in Paris. Before we get started, before we tell you all about it, I want to explain how the train system works, or how the metro works in Paris. Basically, when the train comes in and pulls into the station, the doors open for the train, and then these other like safety doors also open. And then when people get on the train, the doors to the train close, and the safety doors close real fast. So tell them about this adventure.
So I don't know. I'll blame myself because I didn't realize the trains were like that. We were running for the train and trying to catch the train and hold it for the others. So me and my son were running for the train and trying to hold the train for my husband and my two daughters.
Oh, this whole time I thought y'all were just playing and racing each other. I thought,
Absolutely not.
oh,
We
I didn't know
were
they were
trying to hold the train.
Yeah.
So we were running, and I was like, "Run, run, go get the train!" Because it was kind of hot down there, and we didn't want to be. We wanted
So
to
y'all
just
thought
hurry
y'all
up.
were strong enough to hold a train from moving?
No, like in
I'm playing. Go ahead.
normal like New York or Philly or something, you can kind of get on the train and hold the train. But having the platform door and the train door, I think that threw a wrench in our whole plan. And so he's of course faster than me. He runs down the steps. He runs, gets on the train. He kind of hops in, and then boom, boom, like the doors just close, like they're so fast. So I stuck one of my feet in the door, thinking that my foot would kind of keep it open, and it did not. It basically snatched my foot. Mind you, this is a story for another day. I had to have surgery on both of my ankles when we got back from this trip. So my ankle was already hurting the entire trip, and I stuck my hurt ankle into this door, and I had to snatch it out. Now I'm panicking because my son is on the train, my foot is stuck. I got it out, but the other three, or you and the girls, are still trying to come down the steps. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Like internally, my heart is dropping. I'm panicking. And he's like, and I'm yelling at him, calling his name, like, what are you doing? Like as if it was his fault. It really wasn't, but it was panic. So then you come up.
So actually, like when y'all ran ahead, y'all were ahead of us, and I'm hanging back because the girls obviously not gonna be as fast. So I'm hanging back with the girls, but all I hear is scream his name, and so when I came up and saw you, you standing at
In shock.
and yeah, like at the doors screaming, and then he's like got deer in the headlights look through the thing, and now the train is starting to pull off. And remember in Paris, the train doesn't stop at every stop. We're not from there. We don't know the names of all the stops, all that kind of stuff. So at this point, whatever goodbyes we're going to say to our son, we have to get him in.
And I mean, immediately I'm thinking of New York City trains. Like I was brought up in New York, and like seeing the trains there, it's one track, multiple trains. So I'm like, I don't even know what to tell him. Get off at the next stop. Like, is our train going to go to the next stop? I was completely lost.
So, what I quickly kind of thought of was there's this one stop, it's called Charles de Gaulle, where all the trains stop at. Because remember, by the time I got there, now, I'm not even sure if he's on the right train that we were looking to get on. But I knew all the trains stop at Charles de Gaulle. So I'm yelling to him through the door, Charles de Gaulle, get off at Charles de Gaulle, get off at Charles de Gaulle. But I could tell he wasn't quite understanding me. I remember, like I said, the train is starting to move now until that very last second where I saw him step back and look up,
and he put
like
his
looking
ear.
at the map. I saw him looking at the map.
Yeah, he looked up,
And that's when I realized,
and
okay,
he
he
was
didn't
like,
hear me.
okay.
Yeah.
And the people on the train with him were kind of like looking at us and looking at him and
Like
then
we-
looking
we-
at us
we were
and
putting on
looking.
a
And
show.
when he got it, they were like, okay.
But the funny
Like
thing,
they kind of stood back, like, okay, he got it. We're
but
good.
no, the funny part was him. Like when because we finally caught up with him. Of course, as a parent, you lost your child on the subway system in another country. We had about 2 or 3 stops before we got to that Charles de Gaulle stop. Once we got on the train, and you're checking at each train stop and everything like that. But once we finally caught up with him and heard his side of it, he was saying that he couldn't hear me saying Charles de Gaulle because his heart was beating so hard in his chest. All he could hear was his heart beating, and couldn't hear what I was saying until the last second when he did look up. When he got it, I was saying Charles de Gaulle, so he looked up to see how many stops until Charles de Gaulle. Now remember, at that point though, we didn't. I was the only one with a phone. Nobody else had a phone. So,
But this was years ago. So it's not like it is now where it's easier.
but it wasn't hard. We opted not to.
We were trying to save money. I don't know.
we just felt as though everybody didn't need the data card.
We were like, we'll
the
get
SIM
one
card.
phone with the SIM card. We'll
And-
all stay together.
Yeah, we'll all stay together.
And then until we couldn't stay together.
So we learned from that, and from then on, everywhere we went, everybody knew where we were going, and everyone knew the address. And then when we traveled together from that point forward, everybody gets a SIM card. So that
But
was an
even
important
while
lesson
we were
learned.
there, whenever we would leave the apartment to go out in the morning, we would say, okay, this is where we're going. This is the train. This is how you get back. Make sure you go to Charles de Gaulle if we get, separated.
Charles de Gaulle all became
Right. And
If we get separated,
always
meet
knew.
there.
But
Yeah.
our son, did not want to ever separate. And there was another point where we had to separate from you. And he was like, no, we can't separate. That's not right. Leave no one behind. And he was so intent. And we're like, well, you had to take that back to this rental car. We had to go back to the apartment. And you took us back to the apartment and you had to take the train back. And he was just so upset with us. And we all waited for you to get home. Of course, you got home safe, but he was just like, we're not separating. But we learned our lesson. We always now get, of course now, I think it's just easier and we can afford to get the SIM card for everybody. Now it's just easier in certain countries. Your phone will actually just be able to work in that country. Certain phones. So call your carrier. That's a trip and tip. Call your carrier before you go to another country and see what they charge. We recently went to London and they charge us $10 a day, our carrier. So just something to look into. But yeah, fun times, very scary. We actually came up with a chant or like a song about Charles de Gaulle because it just became a theme of the whole trip that we lost him on this train and it was horrific. So fun.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. See you on the next trip.